Greetings, Gamecocks. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Veronica Bjorkman, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Students for Student Life. Today, we are doing the SGA Executive Officer Candidates Debates and Speeches, and I'm going to turn it over to President Ulysses Herrera to introduce our SGA President candidates. Ulysses.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Our first candidate up for a speech is Ms. Kate Seibert.
Hi, Gamecocks. My name is Kathleen Seibert. First, thank you for taking your time to listen during this unprecedented period that we're all facing. This past year, I've served as Vice President of Public Relations for the SGA. I was able to learn so much about what this job entails and meet so many of you students face to face. As President, one of my goals is to continue working alongside our students to confront their problems head on. By listening to students, we're able to better find out what their daily issues are on campus and to find the right routes to solve them. I also plan on working with the students to keep making the bond between all of our students even stronger. With these issues that are facing our campus in the past few years, students have been leaning on each other more than ever. We're one Gamecock family, and it's important that we're all able to keep that in mind. I stand with students, and together we can keep making this campus the very best that it can be. I'd also like to continue working on the social norms campaign that I started this past year as VPPR. It's designed to bring awareness to topics that aren't often spoken about on our campus. Many of these topics are very close to my heart, and I'd be honored to continue keeping this campaign going. I'm always here for you, Gamecocks, especially during this troubled time, and I'd appreciate it if you kept me in mind on April 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Our next candidate for the SGA presidency is Mr. Jared Sharp. Will you please go ahead and give us your speech?
Hey, Gamecocks. Like they said, my name is Jared Sharp, and I am running for SGA president. And let me first off by saying, I hope you all are staying healthy and safe and happy during these crazy times. I'm very thankful that you are here today. But this past year, I served as the SGA Vice President Student Senate, and I was able to establish a lot of new things that haven't been utilized in a while. And the first thing I did was I revitalized the use of resolutions to give the Student Senate a unified body when talking about issues that are facing students on campus to the administration. After that, I worked with the SGA president to establish a presidential cabinet. So I worked with student senators to establish a piece of legislation that gave regulations on who served on the presidential cabinet, who they represented, and how to qualify to serve in that position. Thirdly, I worked with the director of community standards and student ethics on analyzing the code of conduct what needed to be upgraded, what was working, what we could keep and what we could change. And I also served on judicial hearing boards, which haven't been utilized in forever. And so it was very exciting to serve in that capacity. And lastly, I served in the tuition and fees beside the SGA president and sat in different committees on his behalf when he was not able to be present. So with that said, I've garnered a lot of experience and knowledge on how the university works. And as president, everyone's probably wondering why you're running for SGA president. That's always the biggest question. And so the number one reason I want to run for SGA president is to ensure that all students who come through Jacksonville State University can look back and reflect and say, that's not only the place that I got my education and degree from, but it's the place that I found myself and grew into the person I was meant to be. So a positive experience. We're going to start off this process by enhancing the communication between the administration and the student body with the use of SGA Town Halls. And this past year was the first time we'd ever utilized them. It was a great experience to work with the SGA president in planning the logistics of them and then moderating the two that we had. And as SGA president, I would advocate for legislation to be passed and placed in the code of laws requiring SGA officers to hold at least 2 per year. After that, I want to use our appointed officials in the SGA to broaden the communication that we have on campus. And so I really want to use the presidential cabinet to have SGA Town Halls with a dean of the schools that they represent or with graduate studies. So we're not only talking with the administration about big, broad issues, we're also talking about specific issues facing specific schools. Not only that, I want to work with the Dean of Students Office and the current BPOA to establish a presidential workshop during the summer. And at the end of the year, I want to have an event where we celebrate our student recognized organization presidents for all the hard work that they put in their respective organizations that in turn make this university so great. And lastly, I want to see a sexual assault awareness campaign and a domestic violence campaign happen throughout the year to raise awareness about the issues that students face that, some people may be too uncomfortable to talk about. I've served as a student consultant on the OVW grant committee, as a student consultant on the student conduct side of things. So I'm already getting experience on how to navigate those conversations. So in the end, I want to build personal relationships with each and every single student, as well as personal relationships with the administration, faculty, and staff, because people always respond better to a personal story than to like a bland professional statement. So I hope you all consider me on April 14th, and don't forget to be smart and vote for STAR. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. So for this next part, we're going to be doing our debate. And what's going to happen is I have 3 questions, and you will get 2 minutes for each question to answer. And how we're going to do it is for the first question, we're going to start with Kate, and then Jared will answer. And then the next question will start with Jared and then Kate. And it'll just go back and forth like that. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Okay, cool. And then Ulysses is going to go over how he's going to give you a time warning if you get down to 30 seconds within your 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I'll be keeping y'all's time throughout this. If the screen freezes or anything, I still just, it's red, so you can kind of see it. You should. But even if you don't, I'll make sure to at least speak up while you're speaking and just say 30 seconds remain. And then if you go over that time, I'll just, tell you to quiet down.
All right, you guys ready?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ulysses. Did you have something else?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right, Kate. So we're starting with you. For
All
the
right.
first question, we want to know what policies/initiatives are you most focused on for the upcoming year?
So I would really, like I've said, I would really love to continue implementing more policies that adhere to stricter communication. I worked with the Public Relations Committee this past year with Student Senate, and we did a little bit of restructuring with that. I sponsored a bill that would kind of redefine what it is that the PR committee inside of Student Senate did. And we were working along with the town halls that we did that within Board of Trustees meetings. Students would kind of get a layout of what was going to be discussed in those meetings. This was kind of in the aftermath of the entire dining hall situation. That way, students had heightened awareness of these things that were going to be discussed. So I would like for students to be more aware of the decisions that are being made on campus, because I think that situation in itself showed us that students really do care about what's happening on campus. And, even if they're not sitting here saying, what's happening, I want to know everything, these issues do affect them. And they do want to know what's happening, especially if something is of that large capacity and they don't like it, they are going to speak up about it. I think that showed, all of us, I think all of us knew it. And I think that showed personally, like the administrative side, that, oh, wait, everyone does care about this. So I would like to continue to see more communication be open in that. And I think what we did this past year was a good starter on that.
Okay, thank you. Jared, it's your turn. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Just one more time, please.
Okay, so what policies/initiatives are you most focused on for the upcoming year?
Okay, well, speaking of policy, as SGA Vice President of Student Senate, that was my specialty. That's one of my biggest passions as well, is just simple policy. And some of the policies on campus that I've really been analyzing and looking at and working with directors and such is the Student Code of Conduct, like I said in my speech, but also the Title IX policy, and also, of course, the SGA Code of Laws. And like I said in my speech, I'd really like to establish more requirements, responsibilities to enhance the communication between the SGA and the students, because we kind of play that bridge, that role between the administration and the student body. So if we're putting in place policies that hold these future SGA officers responsible, then they're kind of bound by their duties that are outlined in the Constitution and the SGA Code of Laws to perform those events. And, not only perform those events just because they have to, but perform and plan out these events to, like Ms. Seibert said, to enhance the communication, because that's always one of the biggest issues that I think that we saw this year, was just a lack of communication, or jumping the gun and assuming something was said, or misinterpreting on something that was said. So if we can coordinate events where administrators are coming straight to the students and answering their questions face to face, making that personal connection, I think that we can tackle just about any issue that we have on campus. And I think administrators respond better when they can see those students face to face and say their name and hear their story, and then answer their question, explain the reasoning behind a decision, or explain the reasoning they're planning, something in that nature. So I definitely want to focus on the communication, but also trying to implement new different initiatives, such as the sexual assault awareness campaign and the domestic violence campaign, as well as utilizing, like I said, the appointed SGA officers get more involved. If they can get more involved, they can broaden the communication. So all around, just better communication with the different policies and initiatives that I had spoken about earlier. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. So for the second round of questions, we're going to start with Jared this time. Okay. And your question is, what made you run for this position?
Okay, great. That's an awesome question. So I've been very passionate about service ever since I essentially got here and was in freshman forum. My sophomore year, I was a student senator and I served as the governmental relations committee head, and I was able to work with the vice president student senate, planning a couple of events where JSU, these conferences that JSU goes and represents themselves on a statewide level. And I was also able to hear concerns that students had as a student senator, and I was kind of learning more about the inner workings of the university. So when I served as SGA vice president and I was watching President Ulysses Herrera and his example and all the work that he was doing, the initiatives that he was pushing, and the stuff that he was trying to enhance, it kind of set a passion into me that was kind of like, I would really love to have the opportunity to not only follow in his footsteps and follow his lead, but go in and, set some initiatives of my own that I think will help the university. And one of the best ways of helping the university student body is through public service. And the SGA presidency is literally that gap between the students and the administration, as they serve on the board. They serve as a member of the board of trustees, not a voting member, but they're there with the people who make the decisions on this university. And so that's kind of been what my inspiration was. My whole family has gone to JSU, so I kind of have family ties to this university, and I've just fallen in love with it. But even with that said, I still think there's some things that could be improved. There's always room for improvement, no matter how great things are going. And if there are bad things going on, we need to work together to fix that. And so one of the main reasons I'm running for this, like I said earlier, was to ensure that all students can look back when they reflect on this university and say they had a good, positive experience here. And it was so much more than just getting a degree. That's one of the biggest hopes that I have.
Okay, it looks like
I'm sorry, it's frozen.
Jared, can you hear us? Jared?
Jared's calling me now. Hold on.
Ulysses, maybe have him log out and log back in.
There you are.
Jared, are you with us?
Yes, we just had a power outage randomly, but it's
okay. Okay, do you want to start back where you were and we'll just continue on like it never happened?
Okay. We're talking about past, while we're running for SGA president, right? So I think you kind of heard the majority of what I was saying, but yeah, I want to reiterate the fact that I want students to look back and say they had a positive experience here in more than one capacity, and that they didn't just come and get a degree, they came and got a degree, and they grew into the person that they feel as if they were meant to be, and JSU played a part in that. And it can't play a part in that unless students feel like they're being heard and they feel like things are being done. So that's one of the main reasons I'm running for SGA president. Sorry about that.
No, you're so fine. Thank you. I got nervous because I was like, I don't know if I'm the only one who can't hear him. All right, Kate. So same question for you. What made you run for this position?
So I've really learned the importance of listening. Obviously, I knew that was very important, but this year, as I began to, see an influx of students sending emails I answered Ask the SGA emails. So I have students asking about dining and asking about housing and asking about SGA participation or asking about financial aid. And I'll get, DMs on the Instagram page. And I really started to realize that there are students out there who, need help in a lot of different areas. Whenever I came to JSU, I didn't know a single person. Like I knew nobody. I didn't talk to anyone. And throughout these leadership positions on campus, I've really been brought out of my shell. And so I think that JSU has given me so many opportunities, and I want to be able to help provide those opportunities for other people as well. I feel like it's impacted me, and I want to be able to give back, because that's something that's really important to me is, I guess like the idea of like pay it forward almost, that, if someone does something nice to you, you should do something nice for other people. And obviously, those are kind of ideologies that everyone has different takes on. But I feel like that's something that's very, very important to me. And I meet so many people on this campus, who have a question about something, and I'm able to come back into class the next day and say like, hey, I investigated that for you. I figured it out. Even still while we're on break, I see people asking questions and, people in group messages, and I'm able to help them. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that I want to help people. And this is the best way that I've found to continue to do that in the largest capacity. So because I want to help people, I'm a helper. And that's what I'm driven to do.
Thank you so much. And for the last question, we're going to start with you again. So the question is, how are you going to address the international students' community needs?
International students' community needs. So I've worked with international students before. I've had a really fun time. The international students are so fun, and they're so full of life, and they give you such a fun perspective on things. And I think that, they offer a different perspective as well. So I think that by, first of all, hearing their needs is going to be the first thing, and then hearing, well, what do you think is a possible solution? And then say, well, here are the things that we can offer you, and working alongside them, not just listen to what they have to say and then, run from it and say, well, here's what we're going to do instead. But hear what they have to say, what do you think we should do about it? What do you think is a good route that we can take? And then we kind of bring them into the decision-making process, because it's not fair for us to just say, okay, we hear your concern, but this is what we're going to do instead, because that's not what good leadership is, So I would first hear their concern, make sure I hear from all perspectives, any international student that wants to come forward and speak. Or even, have someone appointed from them to come speak to us, and make sure that we have that open communication of, here's an idea, and we bounce it back and forth. And also, after that decision has been made, making sure that the ideas that we've implemented are continuing to work further on down the road. So.
Thank you so much. All right, Jared, so for the last question for you, how are you going to address the international students' community needs?
Okay, well, let me first start off by saying I absolutely love the International House and the programs that they put on. I think it's very educational. So not only are they coming to another country to gain their education, they're also coming to this country and educating current students about their culture, or the food or the religion from their geographical location on the planet. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we have at JSU, and their needs should be met just as much as any student who is from the state of Alabama or Georgia from the United States of America. And I think I agree with Kate wholeheartedly when she talks about actually going to them and hearing their needs. And I think that officially starts by having a face-to-face conversation with the president of the International House. And this past year was Ms. Floor. She was the president, and she did a wonderful job. And I have a really strong connection with her, and as well as with a couple of other students who are working in the National House. And so reaching out to them, going to them, saying, what are some of the needs that you have? What's the needs that compare to other students' needs? Why, let's figure this out and work together. I definitely agree with the fact that, reaching out and talking to them, learning from their perspective, because I obviously cannot relate to their perspective at all. I'm not going to a different country to receive my education. And so that sounds very intimidating. I was from the state of Alabama, And I was the only one from my high school to come to JSU, and I didn't know anybody, much like Kate. So I was very intimidated with that. So I cannot imagine how they feel coming to a whole different country to receive that education. So I definitely would want to be empathetic and sympathetic to those needs and do everything that I could to work not only with them, but whatever office or administrative office on campus that their need would basically be delivered from. So whether that's getting more food options through Sodexo, or if that's, getting, if that's working on financial aid through the ISO program, whatever it may be, let's talk with them, bring them together, face-to-face personal connections, and then move forward side by side. So I definitely feel as if they bring an awesome part of campus that we wouldn't have without them. So I definitely love the diversity of the International House and all the things they give them, and I would definitely love to hear their needs if they have any. So with that, I yield my time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Jared. That was awesome. You guys did a great job. Everybody, don't forget April 14th, 12:01 a.m. to 4 p.m. Polls will be open to vote. We hope everybody participates, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too.